A cowboy was forced into marrying an old maid. She quietly took his heart. The sun hung low over the dry land, casting long shadows across the ranch. Dust moved slowly with the wind, and the sound of horses filled the quiet air. Cole Turner stood near the wooden fence, his arms resting on the rail, his eyes fixed on the open land ahead. Cole was a man who liked his freedom. He lived alone, worked hard, and trusted very few people. The ranch was his life. He had built it with his own hands after his father passed away. Every fence, every stable, every field meant something to him. Marriage? That was never part of his plan. But life does not always follow a man's plans. Inside the small town nearby, people were talking. They always did. And today, they talked about Cole. "He's finally getting married," one man said, shaking his head. "Don't think he had much choice," another replied quietly. The truth was simple. Cole was in trouble. A powerful landowner had claimed that part of Cole's ranch belonged to him. The papers were unclear, and the law was not on Cole's side. There was only one way to save the land. Marry Clara Whitmore, the niece of a wealthy family connected to the land. It was not a love story. It was a deal. Cole did not like it, but he had no other choice. Losing the ranch was not an option. The wedding day came quickly. The small church in town was filled with quiet whispers. People sat close together, curious and judgmental at the same time. They were not there for romance. They were there for story. At the front stood Cole, stiff and serious. His face showed no emotion. He wore clean clothes, but he looked uncomfortable, like a man forced into something he did not want. Then the door opened. Clara Whitmore stepped inside. She walked slowly down the aisle, her head slightly lowered. She was not what people expected from a bride. She was not young, not flashy, not someone who drew attention. Her dress was simple. Her face was calm. Her eyes were soft but quiet. People had called her an old maid for years. She waited too long. They used to say, "No man ever chose her," others would whisper. But Clara did not react to any of it. She had learned to live with silence and judgment. As she reached the front, she stood beside Cole. He did not look at her. The priest began the ceremony. His voice echoed softly through the church. The words were simple, but they felt heavy. When the time came, Cole spoke his vows without feeling. His voice was steady but empty. Clara spoke next. Her voice was soft but clear. There was no fear in it. No anger either. Just quiet acceptance. Within minutes, it was done. They were husband and wife. Outside, people watched as they stepped out together. Some smiled, some whispered, some simply stared. Cole walked ahead without saying a word. Clara followed quietly. That was the beginning of their marriage. Later that day, Clara arrived at the ranch. She stood near the entrance, looking at her new home. It was not fancy, but it was strong and full of life. Workers moved around. Horses were tied nearby, and tools lay scattered from the day's work. Cole stopped beside her, but did not turn. "This is the house," he said shortly. Clara nodded. "It's nice." That was all. He walked inside, expecting her to follow. She did. The house was simple. A wooden table, a few chairs, a bed in the corner room, and a small kitchen. It was clean, but empty of warmth. Clara quietly placed her small bag near the wall. "I'll stay out of your way," she said gently. Cole glanced at her for a moment, then looked away. "Do what you want," he replied. There was no welcome, no kindness, only distance. That evening, Cole sat outside while the sky turned dark. He could hear small sounds from inside the house. Clara moving, arranging things, maybe cleaning. He did not go in. He told himself this marriage meant nothing. It was just a way to save the ranch. Nothing more. But inside the house, Clara worked quietly. She cleaned the dust from the table. She arranged the kitchen. She opened the windows to let fresh air in. She moved slowly, carefully, as if she already belonged there, but without making noise. She asked for nothing. She complained about nothing. She simply began her life. As night fell, Cole finally stepped inside. The house felt different. It was still simple, but something had changed. The air felt lighter. The table was clean. A small lamp was lit. Clara stood near the kitchen. "I made some food," she said softly. If you want. Cole paused. For a moment, he did not respond. Then he walked past her and sat down. He did not say thank you, but he stayed. And for the first time that day, the silence between them did not feel as cold. Still, in his heart, Cole believed one thing. This marriage was only temporary. He had no idea how wrong he was. Morning came early on the ranch. The sun rose slowly, spreading soft light across the fields. The air was cool, and the sound of roosters and horses filled the space. It was the same as every other day, except now, the house was no longer empty. Inside, Clara was already awake. She moved quietly through the small kitchen, careful not to make noise. She lit the stove, prepared simple food, and placed everything neatly on the table. Her hands worked with calm focus, as if she had done this many times before. A short time later, Cole Turner stepped inside. He stopped for a moment. The smell of fresh food filled the air. He looked at the table. Everything was ready. Clara stood near the window, her back straight, her face calm. You didn't have to do that, Cole said, his voice flat. Clara turned slightly. It's no trouble. Cole gave a small nod and sat down. He began to eat without another word. The silence returned. Days passed, and the same pattern continued. Cole worked long hours outside. He left early and returned late. He spoke only when necessary. To him, nothing had changed. But inside the house, everything was slowly different. Clara cleaned every corner. She fixed small things that had been broken for months. She organized the kitchen, washed clothes, and even placed fresh water near the door for when Cole came back from work. She never asked for help. She never complained. The ranch workers began to notice. One afternoon, a young worker named Ben spoke quietly to another. The house feels different now, he said. Yeah, the other replied. Feels better somehow. Clara had also started bringing water and food to the workers during the day. She spoke kindly to them, asking simple questions, listening more than talking. Her presence was gentle, but it changed the mood of the ranch. Cole noticed it too. At first, he ignored it, but small things caught his attention. His shirts were always clean and neatly folded. His boots were placed in the same spot every evening. The house stayed warm and welcoming, even after long days. One evening, he walked inside and paused. The table was set again. Clara stood nearby, as always. You don't need to keep doing this every day, he said. Clara looked at him, her expression soft. I don't mind, she answered. Cole frowned slightly. He did not understand her. Most people expected something in return. Kindness, attention, or at least recognition. But Clara asked for nothing. That night, Cole sat outside longer than usual. He leaned back in his chair, looking at the sky. Strange woman, he muttered to himself. He tried to push the thought away. This was still just a deal. Nothing more. A few days later, something unexpected happened. One of the ranch workers injured his hand while fixing a fence. It was not too serious, but it needed care. The man sat near the stable, holding his hand, unsure what to do. Before Cole could step in, Clara arrived. She knelt beside the worker, her movements calm and steady. Let me see, she said gently. The worker hesitated, then showed her his hand. Clara cleaned the wound carefully, using clean cloth and water. She worked with quiet confidence, as if she had experience. Cole watched from a distance. He was surprised. Where did you learn that? He asked later. Clara wiped her hands and stood up. My mother taught me, she said simply. Cole nodded slowly. There was more to her than he thought. That evening, the house felt different again. Not just clean or organized, but alive. Cole sat at the table, thinking. Clara moved around the kitchen quietly. After a long silence, Cole spoke. You've been busy, he said. Clara gave a small smile. There's always something to do. Cole looked at her for a moment. It was the first time he really looked. Not just a quick glance, but truly looked. She was not flashy or loud. She did not try to impress anyone. But there was something steady about her. Something strong, hidden behind her quiet nature. He quickly looked away. Days turned into weeks. The distance between them still existed, but it was no longer as cold. Sometimes they shared short conversations. Sometimes they simply sat in silence, but it felt calmer now. Still, Cole kept his guard up. He reminded himself again and again, this is just temporary. But deep inside, something was changing. He just didn't want to admit it. One evening, as the sun set, Clara stood outside, watching the sky. Cole walked past her, then stopped. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "It's a nice evening," Clara said softly. Cole nodded. "Yeah, it is." That was all. But for the first time, the silence between them felt peaceful. And without realizing it, the house that once felt divided was slowly becoming something else. Not love. Not yet. But something close. Something growing quietly, just like Clara herself. The sky was not normal that day. Dark clouds slowly covered the bright blue sky, and the wind began to grow stronger. The air felt heavy, like something bad was coming. On the ranch, the workers looked up with concern. "Storm's coming," Ben said, wiping sweat from his forehead. Cole Turner stood near the fence, his eyes fixed on the horizon. He had seen storms before, but this one felt different. "Get everything ready," Cole ordered. "Tie the horses. Bring tools inside. Move fast." The workers quickly began to move. Dust started to rise as the wind picked up. The calm ranch turned into a place of noise and urgency. Inside the house, Clara stood by the window, watching the sky. Her hands were still, but her eyes were focused. She could feel it too. This storm was serious. Within minutes, the wind grew louder. Branches shook, doors slammed, and the sky turned almost black. Cole ran from one place to another, giving orders, helping the workers, trying to keep everything under control. "Move! Hurry up!" he shouted. The first drop of rain fell, then another, and suddenly the storm hit hard. Rain poured heavily, and strong winds pushed against everything in their path. The ranch looked like it was fighting to survive. In the middle of the chaos, a loud shout was heard. "Cole!" Cole turned quickly. One of the workers had fallen near the stable. A wooden plank had come loose and hit his leg. The man cried out in pain, unable to stand. Cole rushed over, kneeling beside him. "Can you move?" Cole asked. The man shook his head. "No, it hurts bad." Cole looked around. The storm was getting worse. He needed to get the man inside quickly. Just then, Clara appeared. Her dress moved with the wind, but her steps were steady. "I'll help," she said calmly. Cole looked at her, surprised, but there was no time to argue. Together, they lifted the injured man and brought him inside the house. Inside, the storm sounded even louder. Rain hit the roof, and the windows shook from the wind. The injured man lay on the bed, breathing heavily. Cole stood beside him, unsure what to do next. Clara stepped forward. "Move aside," she said gently. Cole hesitated for a moment, then stepped back. Clara quickly brought clean cloth, water, and some supplies. Her hands moved with confidence, not fear. She examined the man's leg carefully. "It's not broken," she said, "but it's hurt badly." She cleaned the wound, wrapped it properly, and spoke softly to calm him. "You'll be fine. Just stay still." The man nodded slowly, his pain easing. Cole watched everything in silence. He could not believe what he was seeing. This quiet woman, the one he thought was weak, was calm in the middle of the storm, taking control when everyone else was unsure. Outside, the storm continued. But inside, Clara kept everything steady. She checked the windows, secured the doors, and made sure everyone was safe. The workers gathered inside, tired and worried, but her calm voice helped them relax. "It will pass," she said. "Just give it time." Cole stood near the wall, watching her. For the first time, he did not see her as a stranger. He saw her strength. Hours passed. Slowly, the storm began to weaken. The rain became lighter. The wind softened. The danger was over. Late that night, the ranch was quiet again. The workers rested. The injured man slept peacefully. Clara sat alone at the table, her shoulders slightly tired, but her face still calm. Cole walked in. He stopped when he saw her. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he spoke quietly. "You handled everything well. Clara looked up, a little surprised. I just did what was needed, she replied. Cole nodded. That wasn't easy. Clara gave a small, tired smile. Sometimes you don't have time to be afraid. Cole looked at her carefully. He was beginning to understand something. She was not weak. She had never been. He sat down across from her. The silence between them felt different now. Not cold, not distant, but real. Why didn't you say anything before? He asked. Clara tilted her head slightly. About what? About all this, Cole said. You know more than I thought. Clara looked down for a moment. People don't always listen, she said softly. Cole had no answer for that. That night changed something inside him. The way he saw Clara, the way he thought about her, it was no longer the same. This was not just a marriage of convenience anymore. Something deeper had started, something he could not ignore. As Cole stepped outside, the sky was clear again. The storm had passed, but inside his heart, a new storm had just begun. The ranch was quiet again. After the storm, everything slowly returned to normal. The sky was clear, the air was fresh, and the land looked calm. Workers fixed broken fences, cleaned the yard, and returned to their daily tasks. But inside Cole Turner, things were not the same. He found himself thinking about Clara more than before. The way she stayed calm during the storm, the way she helped without fear, the way she never asked for anything. It stayed in his mind. Days passed, but Cole began to notice even more. Clara still woke up early. She still worked quietly around the house. She still spoke gently to everyone. But now, Cole paid attention. One morning, he saw her outside, feeding the chickens. The sunlight touched her face, and for a moment, she didn't look plain or invisible. She looked peaceful, different. Cole frowned slightly, confused by his own thoughts. That evening, he came home earlier than usual. Clara was in the kitchen, preparing food. She turned when she heard the door. "You're early," she said softly. Cole nodded. Work finished sooner. He stood there for a moment, unsure what to say next. This was new for him. Normally, he would just sit and eat in silence. But not today. He sat at the table and watched her. Clara moved gently, placing the food in front of him. Then she stepped back, as she always did. But this time, Cole spoke. "You don't have to stand like that," he said. Clara looked at him, surprised. "I'm fine." Cole shook his head slightly. "Sit if you want." There was a small pause. Clara slowly sat across from him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Cole cleared his throat. "The ranch is better because of you," he said. Clara blinked, not expecting that. "I just help where I can," she replied quietly. Cole looked at her seriously. "No," he said, "you did more than that." Clara lowered her eyes. She was not used to hearing such words. For years, people had ignored her, judged her, or spoken about her behind her back. She had learned not to expect kindness. So now, she didn't know how to react. The silence returned, but it felt different again. Softer, warmer. Later that night, Clara sat outside, looking at the stars. The sky was wide and peaceful. She liked these quiet moments. They reminded her that life could still be calm, even after difficult days. Cole stepped outside and saw her. He hesitated, then walked closer. "Can I sit?" he asked. Clara nodded. He sat beside her. For a while, they just looked at the sky. No words, just silence. But this silence was not empty. It was comfortable. "I wasn't fair to you," Cole said suddenly. Clara turned slightly. "You didn't want this marriage," she said simply. Cole shook his head. "That's not an excuse." Clara looked at him carefully. "You never did anything wrong," Cole continued. "But I treated you like you didn't matter." Clara said nothing. Her hands rested quietly in her lap. Cole took a deep breath. "I thought this was just a deal," he said. "Something temporary." He looked at her. "But now, I don't see it that way anymore." Clara's heart beat a little faster. She didn't speak, but she listened. "You changed this place," Cole said. "Not just the house, everything." He paused. "And you changed me, too." Clara's eyes softened, but she still looked unsure. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked gently. Cole hesitated. Then, slowly, he answered, because I don't want this to be just a deal anymore. Clara felt something shift inside her. For so long, she had expected nothing. No love, no care, no future. But now, things were different. Still, she was careful. People don't change so quickly, she said quietly. Cole nodded. I know, he replied, and I don't expect you to believe me right away. He looked down for a moment, then back at her. But I want to try. There was a long silence. The night air moved gently around them. Clara thought about everything. The wedding, the silence, the distance, and now, this moment. She had protected her heart for years. But slowly it was opening. I don't need big promises, Clara said softly. Cole listened carefully. I just need honesty. Cole nodded. You'll have it, he said. Clara gave a small, gentle smile. It was not a big moment. Not loud, not dramatic, but it was real. From that night on, things began to change. Slowly, naturally, Cole spoke more. He listened more. He stayed home earlier. He helped when he could. Clara no longer stood at a distance. She sat beside him. She spoke freely. And little by little, they became something more than strangers. The town still talked. But this time, the story was different. The cowboy who never wanted a wife, people said, now can't live without her.